LinkedIn Live Hour of Empower Women's Empowerment event. Had a little technical difficulty. Thanks for hanging in there. I've got Beverly Glazier going to be joining us and Dr. Deborah Dupree. So with that said, chat's open. We depend on chat to really make us as relevant as we can and are open to questions that you might have or thoughts. In the meantime, while we're waiting for our guests to come through, why don't you share, where you're from? And, I'd love to see who's in the audience. So with that said, well, here we go. Here's Beverly. Hi, Beverly. Thanks for joining today. Let me put you through.
Goodness. Oh my goodness, Don. Oh my goodness. Restream and I, as you know, do not get along, right? It didn't allow me your stream. It wanted me to create one of my own. And anyway, I'm here. Yes.
Well, that's all that matters. And I knew you would be here because I know you so well. And I know how persevering you are and being able to work through things. So why don't you share a little bit about yourself? I'll try to see if I can get Deborah going.
I was just thinking of you doing the Women's Empowerment Hour by yourself. Okay. It's like technology, right? Deborah may be having the same trouble. And what I did was shut down and she can start again. So maybe yes. So yeah, in the meantime, of course, I'll share about myself. I'm all about women's empowerment. I'm all about empowerment for everybody. I think there's nothing worse than feeling as if you're a victim and that you're stuck and that you just can't get out of this mess. And I've been helping people get out of messes for years and years, and it's all about empowerment. For a while, I've called myself the empowerment expert, and not necessarily women's empowerment expert, but my focus was on women in particular, because women in general get this wake-up call, particularly in midlife, where it's like, okay, what's next? The children have left. Maybe my job isn't working out so much. I've lost a lot of traction because I gave time to my family, or maybe Mr. Wonderful has walked out, not so wonderful. And then it's like, what happens here? Where do I go with my life? So this is where empowerment is really all about. And it's not about the outside at all. It's all about the inside. It's all about what you do for yourself. And you can take as many courses as you like and still not feel that you're good enough or strong enough or capable enough to do anything. And this happens to women in the workplace a lot. And it happens to women as we age, and if our value is in appearance. So women get hit pretty hard. And although this is empowerment for women, and I see Harvey there. Hey, Harvey, you're a pretty empowered guy. Yes, amazing. Your show has been absolutely amazing. And, you feel more and more power when you get success. And that's something I think that we all have to build on. When we feel that we cannot do something and you don't get that little bit of success, we start going down that rabbit hole of I can't, I will not. And here Harvey did all this work and hey, the #1 franchise show, right? And it's like, wow. And once you say, I can do this, you can kind of say, yeah, now I can do this and I can do this. And it's all baby steps. And it's like, Dawn, when you told me that the Women's Empowerment Show is now #1 in women empowerment, and my first reaction was, yes, Dawn, after, I don't know, 500 some odd shows, right, that you've done, it's like, yes. And everybody says, that's magical. It's like it just happened. But nothing really just happens. And to be empowered, you have to believe. You have to believe that you can do it, even if the whole world says, no, you cannot. Keep believing, and that's something that's inside of you. And yeah, Dawn, is she there? Because I
Well,
can keep
I,
on going, and I will.
I sent Deborah a new link, so
Yeah,
let
yeah,
me let me hope that works.
sure. Tell her to, shut her whole computer down and start in again. You
Yeah,
know.
so she must be watching if she's commenting. So
Oh, great. Yes, yes, you are, Deborah. I see you. Oh boy, I had trouble too today. Don't worry.
we'll get you on somehow. But Beverly's right. Shut down your computer. Go to the link on the message on LinkedIn that I sent, and that
Yeah,
should get you on because that's what Beverly did.
and shut every.
Actually, just by talking.
And
Hey, she's back.
there you go. Finally.
That's what makes this so much fun is the unexpected and the gives you a little bit more to be humbled by or have a little bit more humility. But I'm
Uh-huh.
so grateful to have Dr. Deborah here today, Dupree, with Beverly. They were a great pairing last week. By popular demand, we've got an encore presentation today. And I know Beverly and Deborah have talked since their show, which is
Yes,
great
we did. Yes. And
because, go ahead, Beverly.
I was going to say, and Deborah is also, she's going to be on my podcast, which is about women empowerment, and particularly older women, because that's when we start feeling invisible. And that's when society starts to say, hey, maybe not. And men also, as you age, start feeling invisible if they're not relevant. And Dawn, for sure, you could speak to that. But women often have felt that we're irrelevant for a long time. We play second place to men. We play second place in the workplace, almost even second place in the home, although the kitchen is supposed to be her domain. He pays for the kitchen, right? So it's just this feeling that I am not good enough, not worth enough. I have to have value in other areas. And so, Deborah, join us. And I know that you have a lot to speak to that.
Yeah, I ponder oftentimes about the role of men and women in today's life, and when you think about the messaging that we've had for years and years, and the societal and traditional themes that we've experienced, and and then we go through, for many of us, if we've chosen to get married and have children, and the whole role of parenting, and I find that many times adults are challenged. I always like to say, we fall in love, we get married, and then what do we want to do? We want to have kids, and yet kids can be sometimes the biggest challenge to our relationship, to our identity, to our role, our functioning, and it goes on, and it's a challenging navigation, and particularly then as the kids leave, and then oh my gosh, we just have the two of us now, and what are our roles with one another, and how do we move forward? Who am I after all these years of giving myself to so many other people? And so it really is standing up with courage and feeling empowered to do something different.
Yes.
Well, that's great, Deborah. And what comes to me is the big word is empowerment. Right now, women's becomes more specific to that audience, but everybody can benefit from empowerment. Everybody could benefit for the support of empowerment. And the reason I bring this up and the reason why it's so relevant is that Carl had, uh, great, Debbie, Carl had his first show today. And it was at 8 o'clock uh, Mountain Time. I'm at 9. Harvey, who's here, has the franchise show at 10. And Kelly, who's here, has the opportunity at 1 p.m. So you got 4 hours of our group showing up. But what's so cool, Everybody came to support Carl. He had a huge audience. We were number one in the event, just starting out,
Wow.
and he's well on his way. But what was so gratifying and validating, he only started with us 10 weeks ago,
Yeah.
and joined the collaboration group. Started every other week hosting, and he cut Harvey's time frame by 60%. So it's like, how fast can we launch somebody? Outfit them, get them on their own ship or their own plane, and all get behind them for a tailwind. You know, and I think the beauty of it is community, and empowerment comes from community.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, by sharing, and that's what we do. And now I'm going to learn from Carl's every week show on what's going on, and so is Kelly. And I think that's how we all became number one shows, is we figured it out, how to promote, how to niche, how to be consistent. It's so great when you got a playbook that you're following somebody who was just there 10 weeks before, and that playbook's going to compress and your progress is going to accelerate. So it's really nice when you finally find a home, you finally find a family in that home, and then you work to help everybody get better than they would have been without you. So Beverly, this is a great start to a great show. Glad we're all together. We're all on the same height level now.
Yeah, we're all back. Yes. Yeah, exactly. I'm going to take pretty well off on you, Deborah. When you were saying how women have so many different roles that we have to play, and that is really stressful. And if you have to work on in one channel, it's easy. You're focused on this, you're getting that job, you're moving your life forward, etc., etc. I've often said, I need a wife. I think a wife is the greatest invention. I really do. Okay. There's someone who loves you, I'm assuming, supports you, etc., takes care of the kids while you just do your thing, right? How nice. Well, what happens is now the roles have changed, thank goodness. We don't have the identity now, or it's getting there. It's that women are taking more responsibility out there. Roles are now 50-50, and men do step up. Younger men, I see that all the time. There was a time where, a man would refuse to diaper a baby. I mean, that just wasn't his job. And so, the woman who may have had other jobs too has to also take care of the children. And when you're exhausted, and, and I'm talking here middle class, there's so many people that have roles that they're surviving, just survival mode. And the women are the ones that are out there. The women are the role models, and the women are really holding up the family. And it's so, so, so very difficult. And in the workplace, and for sure you could speak to that, Deborah, you're taking a look at a woman, and often you're looking at her and you will say, well, if I hire this person, perhaps she has too many obligations on the home front, and perhaps she's not going to do that job. And you've immediately categorized her with, she's so busy that just maybe she's not going to be able to do both. And I know I felt that as well when I was way back when. And it's like, oh, you just got married. Well, I guess, that job is only going to last for just a short time because you're going to want to raise children. And this was a woman, she had the nerve to actually say that to me. And I had no intention of leaving. And I had to defend that, but I know in the back of her head, she was saying, oh, yes, little girl, she doesn't know. She's going to want a picket fence and all that. So we have so much more to fight, and that's disempowering. And you could see this in all the arts. You could see this everywhere. Medicine, women have to struggle, and still do, to get up there. There is that glass ceiling, and it is about empowerment. And just as you said, Dawn, community is where it's at. Women together, women who nurture each other, finding your own tribe, you know. And I know just for myself, where my friends are all retiring and, they're doing all kinds of wonderful things, but, Beverly's a little off. Well, I have my tribe. And in my tribe, I'm not off. We're all doing the same thing. And that's wonderful. And we all have to find that community. We all have to find people that support us and understand our quirks. And we all have them. And thank you for that, Deborah, because it's really true. We have so many different roles to fill, and a lot of them can be very disempowering because it's exhausting. And who's there for us? You're too tired to even get on the phone and have a bitch fest with your friends and say, huh? It's like, oh.
Well, you've said a lot there, Beverly, and we do play unique roles. And one of the things that I like to go back to the basic neuroscience, in that our brains are structured differently. Yeah. And women, the way our brains are wired, we are actually capable of multitasking more so than males are. Right or wrong, sometimes it's wrong. It doesn't serve us well in terms of our ability to multitask, because we take on too much, and that's the downside of being a woman. And men have this incredible ability of being really focused and laser-like, and so it's really identifying what is it about who I am as a person, who I am as a woman, who Don, you are as a man, and recognizing our unique gifts, and then also taking courage, developing courage, developing curiosity with that empowerment. Then, as far as, okay, what do I want to focus on? I'm working with a few people right now that, okay, here's where I've been, but how's that working for you? Not too well. And so here's where I am, and I'm stressed or whatever, and not doing so well. And where do I want to be? Who do I want to become? And really taking, again, courage in saying, I can be the architect of my life. I can be empowered to take steps forward to change what's working and what's not working. And it's not about right or wrong. It's about what works well in your life, and where do you want to go? What are your goals? And then how do you put this together? And that's where partnership, as I see in the comments in the chat box too, partnership becomes so important. And sometimes we have it, sometimes we don't, and that's the challenge in life as well.
Yeah. Perfect. I think we're off to a great start after a little bit of an interesting start, but let's go right to the audience. Carol's here. Carol was just on the inaugural show. I was happy to be the first guest. I was telling Kelly and Harvey, as I was Kelly's first guest and I was Harvey's first guest, I feel like the champagne bottle. They break against the boat before they send it out to sea. But always happy to be helpful in the launch. Kelly said, good morning, all. Carl Dakin, shout out for a fabulous first show. When people encourage you, they empower you. Mm-hmm. When people say, you're great, you look perfect, you're thinking so ahead of your, anything like that. Wow, I knew it, but it took a while for someone else to see it, but they told me. So it must be real. Right? It's just not me and me. Linda, who's just a wonderful lady, grandmother, great-grandmother, mother, good morning, all. Ice keeping people home here. Yeah, Linda's from the heartland where it's pretty cold right now. Harvey Buck says, hey, Don and Beverly, we'll be here in the background listening and working at the same time. Multitasking must be channeling my inner woman. Good for you, Harvey. Harvey's such a gentleman. Dennis is another wonderful man, 49 years in heating and air conditioning. BB fixed up and empowered. Deborah's here and here trying to join. We got you in. Laura's interesting because I saw Laura for the first time on Carol's show. And I promoted everybody's show today. So thank you, Laura, for taking the opportunity to get to know Beverly, Dr. Deborah, and myself, and the rest of the audience, because it's one helping one. One thing I'll also say is, aside from women and men, everybody's a human.
Yes.
Everybody's a person, right?
Yes. Yes.
And if you're out there helping whoever you feel deserves your time and attention, then you
Yes.
should, right? Who's got the time to judge? You know, and one thing I've been fortunate, I've had just the most wonderful wife for 47 years, is I learned giving is getting. And I'll tell you that I know always works. I can get anything I want, anything, if I vacuum on my own. You know, I mean, vacuuming will get me whatever dinner I'm looking for, you know. And, you know, I kept thinking, you go to the gym to exercise, you walk and you exercise. Why not just do the housework it's exercising, right? You know, you ever see people go to the gym and they try to find the closest parking spot? And meanwhile, they're there to walk or do something. So it's really putting something together, plus knowing what it means to somebody should mean something to you,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? If
Yeah.
vacuuming is the thing that's going to make a big difference, why not? Fast forward, what are you in, 10, 15 minutes? And you know what I also believe, if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for you, right? If you're willing to watch it, you should be able to be watched doing it. And I think that's where the middle ground comes in. That's where the meeting shows up. And you know, the other thing is, when you get beyond that, don't keep score. Don't worry who did 50% and who did 40. It's a team, right? It's, hey, let's get this done together, and it's so much more fun, right? And it's, you know, it's sad when someone's watching TV and someone's working their heart out, you know, and they'll get up, do some dishes. I mean, what is it? So it's really about how do you project and how do you encourage? And you know what? You get empowered by those people because they want to be responsible and accountable and say, hey, you did something really nice for me, and I didn't expect it. And you know, and you don't expect something in return, but it's like because of that, they want to encourage that, whoever it is, to keep it going. You know. So, anyways, let's go to some comments that we almost finished. Dennis is our comic here. She's front. I don't know what that means. Dennis comes back with agree. She pays for the kitchen because she cooks. Us guys mostly make reservations for dinner. That is true. Carrie, who's another jokester, says this is a National Pie Day. Then mathematician says it's not March 14th. I don't quite get that one. LinkedIn, okay, well, Beverly, Don, great to see you. Carrie. Dennis comes back with agree empowerment with sharing and caring works well. You know, and don't you get happy when the people around you are happier, when they're more comfortable, when they're safer. You don't have to deal with them. You don't got to worry about them. You know, they're taken care of. And that way you have more time now. And I think what Beverly and Deborah is alluding to is the time to really be yourself, right? And not totally be of service to everybody and everything until everybody stops asking. And then you got what little time you have for yourself. And you know, you want to keep people around. You want to keep them sustainable and vibrant, you know? So everybody's benefit in some way is yours. Minerva's here. I know Beverly knows Minerva. Minerva's up in Canada, been involved in a lot of government stuff and really great in so many areas. Good morning, everyone. Women are the cornerstone pillar of the family. We continue in that role throughout our lifetime. While our husband and partners make meaningful contributions, our role is key. Today, both parents share alongside our partners. And, you know, I love raising the kids. You know, I wouldn't go to work until the kids were in school. I'd take them to school every day, down the block, and I'd be home for dinner every night. And you know, what you do duplicates and models for them, right? So if you're not respectful, if you're not helping cleaning up, then they just figure that's the way it is.
Mhm.
So it's not about you. And I think when people can get outside of themselves, they can get with more of what they don't have. Did I say that? Okay, Minerva comes back. Hi, hi, hi. Minerva then says, sorry, couldn't join, but we'll make input. Always glad to have you in any way possible. Laura says, givers gain in business too. Try to give more you receive. Currently working on this myself. Well, if you think you're worthy of something, then who else is worthy of it that you can provide for?
Mhm.
While you're waiting and nothing's really happening, why don't you start giving and making something happen for someone else? And maybe that'll start the cycle in your direction. If not, it's good practice. Minerva, more hands make the workloads light. And it isn't work when you're doing things together. I
Mhm.
remember when we had leaves when our kids were growing up, we had more fun rolling in them and throwing them around and put them in the bag. And it was an experience, right?
Mhm.
And even cleaning up can be fun. I know growing up in those days, the women would go to the kitchen, the men would go to the TV, and that was before dishwashers. So they'd have who's drying and who's washing. And
Mhm.
everybody be laughing and talking, and it was a community. The aunts and everybody would be together, and no one ever thought about the work. They thought about the community, the fun, the joy, and it reflected it all through the family. So, Deborah, what's your new thoughts on all of this stuff?
Well, what I'm hearing underlying a lot of this is attitude, and maybe some of our implicit biases that we might have. We may have attitudes that don't serve us well and can reflect negatively. And like you were talking about in the kitchen, washing dishes together. Again, if you look at it, well, oh, I have to wash dishes. Instead, say, oh, I have an opportunity to be with a circle of friends, and we're going to clean up and have fun while we do it. And so it's just shifting how we look at things. And from that, we can feel very empowered by, okay, how can I make a difference right now? What can I do for myself? What can I do for those around me right now? And so making choices in the present, which will then influence how we move forward with ourselves and with others, in the next days, future, whatever that might be. But it really is what can I do that can make a difference for myself and for those around me? How can I empower them? How can I empower myself? Again, going back to courage and curiosity. And let's see where this can go.
Sounds great, Beverly. I know you're just a
Well,
wealth of knowledge.
it's just that, yeah, you made me think here of the kitchen thing, which I kind of loved as the kid because that was the woman's space, and you'd hear all the gossip going on and all that kind of stuff. And as a kid, it was great. They'd always feed you extra stuff, and like you were special, or you'd bring in your dishes, and you did all kinds of grown-up things, which were a lot of fun. As we get older, though, those holidays are not necessarily so much fun for women, and I've heard this a lot, and I've heard myself say that too, particularly if you're balancing and you really want to make like a big spread for everybody and you want everybody to be great. You do have to let go a lot of your expectations to have a good time, because it is a lot of work. And yes, dishes do have to be done. And I'm talking Beverly speak. This is China. Do not pile the China here. Okay. It's like, I have little rules, okay, as to how I want done. And I know many women have exactly the same thing. And I heard a client say this. She says, oh my goodness, it's Christmas. Everybody comes to my house. It's wonderful when they're gone, but I have a really small kitchen and everybody's trying to help. So I say, no, no, no. And then she ends up doing it all herself. And everybody's in the living room having a great time, and she's slaving in the kitchen. So I said to her, I said, I understand. I really understand how you feel. And she wants to clean up those dishes because then it's all grungy food after, the whole thing, right? So I said, but could you tell them, just tell them what you want done? Or ask your husband afterwards, could you do the vacuuming? Aha, the vacuuming there. Or how they can help you, rather than just stay within yourself, not say anything, grind away and hate those holidays and feel sore and miserable the next day. So I think communication, we do not have to be all things to all people. And this is, I believe, a woman's thing. We're supposed to be not necessarily the breadwinner, but if we have to do it, we will definitely do it. However, we are supposed to be the mother, and we are supposed to be able to entertain our guests. And those are the things that are expectations on, I believe, women in general. And there's nothing wrong with that as long as we get help. And it's the same with men. But men have the liberty of saying, hey, I'm not so great in the kitchen. Could you bring that dish, or could you do that? Right. But women, it's like, okay. And it's not the end of the world if you have to buy that cake or that dessert. Even if you've made that grandmother's cake for 100 years, whatever it is, no, give it up. Give it up. It's okay, as long as you have fun too. I think joy lifts you up. And that's where empowerment comes in. You feel good, you do good, and it's a job well done. But it doesn't have to be perfect. And to allow people in. That's
Well, I
how
think that's beautiful, Beverly. And when you say help and serve, what brought a really cool idea that I instituted was, before we downsized, we had a huge house, and we could have 100 people entertained without anybody bumping into each other. And when you start doing parties like that, neighborhood get-togethers, but most importantly, important parties, because my mother was living with us the last couple of years too. And I found a couple service people in restaurants that we used to go to. And I said, hey, we're going to throw a big party. We could use some help. And we had 2 people at every party, one preparing, one serving, both of them cleaning up.
Yeah.
And my wife got the whole party, right? She got to socialize. She got to learn. She wasn't like, is everybody gone? And if you're going to put that much time and attention and expense to a party like that, why not let the other person in your life enjoy every bit of it just like you do? Right? And how much is a party when you got 3 hours of work waiting for you after, and you put all this work? It's not a party at that point. So I think if people would just look at being aware of putting themselves in someone else's position, right? Even an employer, like you say, Beverly and Deborah, people aren't getting equal treatment for equal work, and they're not getting recognition, and they're a lot of times getting taken advantage of. Would that person want to be, would that person want their wife or daughter to have to deal with that? And when I brought a lot of people into my companies, they were pretty young, 18, 20, 24, whatever. And I always thought, what are their parents thinking? And how would I feel if this was my child here? And how would I want that kid treated? And it makes a big difference, because a lot of times there's no more work, time, trouble, or resources. It's attention. It's paying some awareness. And the other thing is asking. Don't always presume. Ask somebody, are you feeling treated properly? Are you respected here? I mean, most of the time they'll say sure. And at least you ask. But what if they said, well, if you really want to know, here's what I'm thinking or feeling, and that gives you a chance to maybe explain, or maybe say, I wasn't aware, and I'll do something about it. And I think that's the key, is people want an advocate. They want someone, when they hear something is problematic, to be able to fix it, because that's your culture, right? And how you deal with anybody's issue is how everybody's going to think you're going to deal with their issue. And, usually either you get people who ask for permission or ask for forgiveness, right? And if they know the answer is no, if they ask, maybe the answer will be yes when they say forgive me. But that's, Deborah, what's your thoughts now? We go all over the place here.
Yeah, we are, aren't we? It's an interesting conversation this morning. It's one of the things I think is really important. I mean, I'm always amazed as I work with people in coaching that how much of our adult behavior is oftentimes driven by how we were raised, in our families of origin, and in the way our parents or grandparents interacted. And again, we've seen lots of evolution over the last 50 years, and uh, right, wrong, or indifferent, it is what it is, and we are influenced by those past patterns of behavior, and that's why it's so important. And I think Beverly will agree with this, and probably many of our participants today, is that how important it is to get to know who you are in your adult life, and making choices about how you want to live and how you want to engage, how you show up matters, and how you influence others. And setting boundaries is one of those things. And as you said, Don, is that it's about asking and for help when we need it, but oftentimes we don't know how to ask for that. And so it really is, again, going back to courage and feeling empowered to say, this is what I've got going on. And I do a lot in the workplace, and uh, workplace dynamics are really interesting in terms of people feeling safe. Again, a lot of attitude and bias come into play as far as how people show up in their adult lives. We can be very intellectually intelligent, very smart in what we do, but sometimes our basic philosophies about who we are and how we show up and engage with others is challenged. And so it really is about, I'll go back to the same where I talk about courage a lot, really developing courage about what do I need, what am I looking for, how can I be who I am, but also how can I help others, and how can I bring others along with me in terms of helping them be the best that they can be as well. And so it's a complex world today. It really is. Lots of different factors going on in terms of who we are as individuals, who we are as a people, who we are as communities. And going back to the notion we talked about earlier, something like our program today, or the programs you're talking about, is the sense of inclusion, the sense of belonging, is part of being a community here, and sharing ideas and gaining insights and continuing to learn and grow. I'm always stimulated by events like this as far as what I can learn and what I can take away and what I can pass on to others.
Well, this is like a quiz show that we put on ourselves and try to elevate our thinking, reach
We never know.
and get experiences that we had forgotten for a while, and to come to the surface, and you get to relive them. Like Beverly says, those kitchen scenes. And I was always the only guy who was back with the women. Because you're right, I get a cookie here. Everybody wanted to feed you. Everybody wanted to entertain you, and you were loved, and it became a lot of waste through food or everything else. But just the laughter, the fun, the joy of being involved with something like that. So, yeah, I believe that empowerment is available and accessible in ways that were never before attainable. And I think when you're talking about empowerment, you're really talking about access, right? You're talking about availability. I can go anywhere everybody else is going. I can do anything everybody else is doing. Nobody wants more. They just want fair. And I think the key is that people have to raise their voice to be heard. And a platform like live streaming gives people a chance. There's 936 empowerment events on LinkedIn within a week. Fortunately, we're number one, but the point is that shows the interest. On women's empowerment, it was like 206. Well, 206 events is still quite a few events. It shows there's a huge curiosity. But here's the thing. When you do the same event every week, same time, you're not scattered. Most of these events don't repeat because there'll be a different event, a different day with a different group. It's just different. When you say safe, dependable, reliable, people get attracted to that. They don't want them done. They want to be able to put their toe in the water, and if it's good, take a dive in. So Beverly, a lot of great
Yeah.
comments. But I was looking at the numbers, and they're through the roof as far as participation. And
Yay.
what I would suggest is just share name and where you're from, just to be seen, because that's part of the benefit here is networking, exposure. You don't want to be in the witness protection plan in LinkedIn. You know, you want to be out there. So Beverly,
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to go back to what Deborah said because Deborah works in the workplace, and yeah, I can understand what you're saying when what comes back is that ego, and the ego is there in the workplace, and we all have those roles that you have to put on, and that's where you kind of lose who you are, and you can become disempowered by that older brother, so to speak, who happens to be your boss, and or all the different roles that other people play. But the important thing is that you stay empowered. You have that belief. And it all goes back to childhood. It really does. It's like, as Deborah was saying, it's like we become different people in those different environments. We become those kids. And to erase that slate, really, where you're pre-programmed, because it's that little kid that's really you. And that little kid, usually as a woman, has been kind of erased because of all the different roles that we have to fit into, whether it's motherhood or whatever. It's like, where is me in this picture? And then now I'm working my way up the corporate ladder, but still now I have to be a mother. So it's a real juggling act. But often we forget where our direction is in life. What I'm thinking of is, and I just love the vision of Sally Ride, who was the first woman astronaut to get up there. And you say, astronaut, a woman? Like, really? And she was asked, how did you ever even think of reaching the moon, the stars? Why? And she was brought up in the country, and she said, as a little girl, I used to look at the sky. And she said, there's nothing like looking at the sky because we don't see the sky in the city. But I would lie on the grass and look at the sky. And then I always said, I want to be up there. And when you think about that and how much that dream must have been squashed 100,000 times from the sciences, from the mechanics, from even dreaming of being an astronaut, she kept that dream. And I believe that, I'm talking little girls now, we have to keep that dream. And as women, that's why my focus is women and older women. When all the baggage is over, or you have the idea and the luxury of having the money and the retirement, to find your purpose, find your passion, and to keep on growing. Because, hey, we go over 100 now. And where is that gap? We've never known that. So now is our time. Oh, I'm going to put in a little bit of self promotion here because I have a course that's coming up tomorrow, which is free. Free yourself to be yourself. It just so happens, but but basically, oh, it is free, by the way. But basically, what it is erase that slate. You have to believe, and you have to cut all that baggage that you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not anything enough, and go back to that kid in you. Whereas, I used to like art. Like, where does that come from? Like, I have not done that in years and years, or whatever it is. Find the you, and that will empower you. And you don't have to be a great anything. It's baby steps. You just have to do it, like it and say, hey, that was pretty cool. And if someone else likes it, that's great. It doesn't mean you have to sell it to get the confidence that you're an artist. You just have to like it and put it up and say, hey, I did that. So that's what I'm thinking of, because you, Deborah, you see a lot of that in the workplace. And it's like, and what I see are when they leave the workplace, the people behind that little boy or girl, you know, who has to or believes that they have to fit that role and not vacuum or get the maid because that's the role of who he should be, rather than, I'm going to just help out. Hey, this is fun, allowing yourself to be. And that's who we are. We're people, like you said in the beginning, Dawn. That's all we are. We're people. Let it go. Have fun.
Oh, absolutely. So, Deborah, what have you seen that can help people who are searching to become more empowered as a opportunity or a vehicle to do that?
That's a great question, Don. Thank you so much. And Beverly, I like so much of what you had to say there. You mentioned Sally Ride, and I have to admit, way back in my college days, I was in social sciences, and I had a job that I got a job in, I can't remember, some physics kind of department. And the head of the department was actually Sally Ride's husband. And so I was like, oh my gosh, and so we would have these fantastic conversations and talk about the hard sciences meeting the soft sciences. Oh man, it would be just amazing conversations, as far as how people look at things. Mm-hmm. And so I say that, Don, just to bring it back to your question then, as far as, I think, one of the questions I put out to people, and again, no right, wrong, indifferent, it's just that, what's working for you and what's not working for you. And how is that working for you? And I often get a smile across people's faces when I say, how's that working for you? Again, it's not right or wrong. It's just that, is it helping you get what you want? And that's where I think is really being in the moment and deciding at any point. I think it's really thinking, okay, what brings me joy? Beverly talked about that earlier. What brings me joy? And what helps build my confidence? And what vision do I have? And so part of, as I mentioned before, is that we are the architects of our lives. And so how do you see your life playing out? I'm working with a client right now, coaching, had a lot of challenges, and said, okay, let's fit. Okay, it's January 22nd. That was yesterday. And okay, by June 30th, how do you want to show up? What if you are getting better, shall we say, what would that look like? What are 2 or 3 characteristics or behaviors that you can see yourself doing that would show that you are actually getting better? You're becoming the person that you want to be. Mm-hmm. And so it just gets back to, where am I today? Am I happy? What would make me happier? And what steps can I take to move towards that? And it's really about showing up with intention, making choices. But we have to have some clarity with that.
Well, I think we cover so much of this so well. What makes me think of role models when you say Sally Ride. And my role model was my grandmother, and my mother, and my sister, and my wife, and my daughter, and my granddaughter. And they were so strong. I never feared for their ability to stand up for themselves, to get what they wanted, when you grow up around strong women, you tend to have a higher degree of respect for strong women. But here's the thing. So many people focus on what people withhold from other people that discriminate. But how many people, if they invested a little in those people, would get such a better return, right? So put these people to their best potential, to give them every tool and vehicle to get there. That's where empowerment is. It's not doing something for somebody. It's doing something for them to do something with that something, right? It's the same thing, give a fish, teach a fish, or something like that. And I think it's the same thing as it's your environment. It's your culture. It's how things have always been done, with the people washing dishes here and watching TV over there. But there's also a person like me that goes to the other side and feels even more comfortable. And I think that's the thing, is when everybody's got a bigger door that's wide open, no judgment, go wherever you want to be, wherever you're comfortable. And so many people try to fit a square peg in a round hole, and they live their whole life compromising, accommodated, minimized. And, it's not anyone's total fault, but it's everybody's total interest to figure out how to move away and move towards. And now with shows like this, there's something going on every hour here, right? That someone could dive right in. And the things, because when we thought of women's empowerment early on, it's like, well, I mean, a regular thought would be, well, you're going to cut off half of the people, right?
As
But
was
we're
we
not
thought.
saying women's only empowerment. And, I think what we've learned is men can go a long way towards participating in women's empowerment events, to be aware, to know what someone is feeling and going through and dealing with. And I think that's the beauty, what Beverly said earlier. This is international. This has no boundaries. I know women in countries like Pakistan and other places that they are the match to ignite things with their groups. I know women with 50, 60,000 connections, and now when they post, they're influencing those 60,000 people bottom up instead of top up, and encouraging them. And if everybody gets a louder voice, a better voice, the orchestra and the choir sound so much better. And now, what I think empowerment should lead to is hope. Because once you have hope, once you feel, hey, the door is open again, and I think, growing up, you see kids 6, 7 years old, they're going to be president, they're going to be an astronaut, they're going to be an NBA superstar. Everybody has a dream. I'm going to be Barbie, I'm going to be whatever. Somehow that dream got taken away slowly by the dream stealers, by the people say you're not tall enough to play basketball, you're not fast enough to do this, you're not this, you're not this. Well, people should say you're this, right? Why minus anything when you meet somebody? Everybody's got greatness within themselves. It just needs to be brought up. And I think it's more fun living a life where you're watering everybody's plants for them and with them and seeing them blossom and grow. There's a saying that gets more clear as I get older, is you start planting trees you'll never sit under, right? But you still plant those trees, and then you'll see some of it. But maybe your kids, maybe your grandkids will sit under it. I think that's what you do, is you build legacy in time. So Beverly, coming up on 53 minutes, this thing goes so quick.
It really moves, yeah. I'm going to pick up on what you said also about empowerment, Dawn. When you feel empowered, you're not threatened. And so there's no fear in bringing other people up. It's based on your own fear that you're going to lose your role. And so you're putting people down. And so the important thing to feel for each and every one of us is that I can. And it's that little spark of hope that you mentioned can burn into a belief system, whereas it's come heck or high water or hell or high water or whatever, I can, and I'm going to figure that out. So whether I get help, a community, or how did that person do it, or, ask or whatever, but keep that belief alive. And there is life after life. You can crash and then Phoenix can rise again. It's empowerment comes from within. And if we don't change our mindset and be educated, which is the key, learning, the more we know, the more empowerment we have, it can keep growing. And so it starts with us And if we don't change our mindset, I mentioned this before. If everyone in the world had the same amount of money, right, it would all come back into the same hands, right? Because if our mindset hasn't changed, you're going to lose it. It's not going to change at all. We all have to change, and it's all about personal development. Change from within. Learn about yourself. When you learn about yourself and you start feeling good, hold it, world. Nothing is going to stop you. That's empowerment, men or women. If you feel empowered, you're not threatened. And
Yeah,
yes,
I think, it's so universal that for things to change, you need to change
yes,
and you need to be teachable. And
yes.
what I love is the access to information that's on your fingertips. I mean, the reason I get through technology is I invest 30 minutes into YouTube as soon as something new and interesting comes up, and I ask YouTube a bunch of questions. In a half an hour, I'm a little conversational, I got a little context,
Mhm.
and I help myself. In the old days, you had to have an encyclopedia at home. And if you didn't have that, you had to have a library card, right? Because that was only access to information, and most of that was dated or general, wasn't interactive. And who better to learn from than the people you trust and want to be with? And that's where the community and empowerment comes in. Is ask Beverly a question about anything she talked about today. Ask Deborah anything that maybe you want to learn from, because that's part of networking.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Networking, a lot of people say, well, what do I get if I connect with this person? What's my chances of getting some value? Instead of what do I learn from this person? What can that person share, or maybe be a friend at a certain point? I mean, sometimes a comment at the right time can turn somebody's world around and save somebody
Mhm.
from turning the switch off for the last time in their office or warehouse or store, who just gave up because wasn't they weren't good enough. They couldn't fight a battle at home, a battle at work, a battle with themselves. You got to be able to take the load off of people sometimes. That's all they need. They don't need more, they need less at that time, right? And it's easier to say, what can I help you with? And here's what you need, you know? And so this is 57 minutes. So final words. This is your second time, Deborah. Looks like you're so well acclimated to this format.
Well, hey, I love people. As was said before, is that we're all part of the human race, and we worldwide we share a lot of common characteristics. And so, if we can keep that in mind, that we're all part of the human race, we have a lot more connection than when we would ever imagined possible. And so, one thing that came up for me is the word impossible. And so people can be daunted by that. And so, like Beverly said, mindset. And if we shift that and just say, I am possible. Okay. I know I've seen that from Audrey Hepburn, but it's shifting the way we look at things. And boy, does the world open up then in terms of what we can learn and grow from our experiences and mostly from our community. And so I am possible. You are possible. Let's do it together.
Well, that's very empowering and encouraging, and a great way to tie it all together. Beverly, your final thoughts?
Well, I'm just going to piggyback on that because my whole business is called Reinvent Impossible. So, so you know what I believe. I believe also nothing is impossible as long as you change your mindset
Mhm.
completely, and it's doable because the way we've been brought up has been pre-programmed. Mom might have said you were fat, but you know what? No matter how many diets that you've been on, you can be still thinking you're fat because of et cetera, and go into anorexia. I'm not even going to go there, but the bottom line is pre-programming is what it's all about. We don't have to be those roles. We can just be as people. And when you're yourself, my goodness, how much more powerful can that be, right? You can let go all that ego stuff.
Mhm.
And so I want people to connect with me, connect with Deborah, connect with Dawn. Reach out. Okay. For me, and I'm sure Deborah does that too, I give a call, it's free, 15 minutes. Should you want to reach and talk to me? I promise I will sell you nothing. And by the way, if you don't want to buy anything anyway, you're empowered enough. You do not have to. So, but I won't do that. Trust me. The bottom line is no fear. Okay. That's empowerment. Get out of that headset, that mindset. I'm not good enough. Set boundaries with people who disempower you. You don't deserve it. And find that belief, that inner child that says, I can. The one before he broke his leg running. That one, the one that keeps on running. That's a child. So, Dawn, we're hitting, I think, a couple of seconds.
Yeah. No, this has been great. And I just want to say that your expectation will have a lot to do with your satisfaction of your initiative.
Yeah.
You don't put too much pressure on yourself. If you don't give yourself an unreasonable time frame, if you don't allow for a little bump on the road, a little bit more expense and everything else, but it's a journey. That's the thing, is savor it. Take it slow. If you're hopeful and you're sure you're going to get there, be your own best friend along the way. And I think when you get to that point, when you're happy with yourself, people will find you to be a happier person to be with, right? So start at the beginning, start with the only person you have control over, and give yourself a pat on the back for surviving this long, for whatever it took. You did it to get here, right? That should be a reason for celebration. And now you got a fresh slate. Today starts your new world if you want it. The past doesn't have to define you, and to the points we made earlier, other people definitely shouldn't define you, or you shouldn't let them, So I think you have the power, and you can empower yourself and help other people empower themselves, and that starts to change. So with that, thank you very much. Tomorrow, we're going to have Don and Carl and Paul Banks, who's just a great gentleman from England. Can't wait to go over Carl's show today with them. And then Thursday, we've got Kelly Harvey and myself. Friday, we got a big show. We got a major general coming here, Greg Evans, who wrote Bipolar and how he's helping so many vets. Dave Snell, a 26-year Navy vet who's helping vets transition with me and Kelly. So, it's just going to be fantastic, basically, with where we're going and how we're going to get there. So thank you so much, Deborah. Thank you, Beverly, as always.
Great.
Always. Thank you. You're take care.
Take care.